modules for this year. They're coming out pretty soon. This guy is a DIY kit, which is a transmitter module that's a companion to the RF Nomad. What it lets you do is, if you're in a situation where you're not getting any radio stations, or you want to have a little more control over what your Nomad's receiving, you can plumb audio into this jack, turn the transmitter on, and the Nomad can receive that audio. It's intentionally designed as a very poor quality transmitter. The idea being that if you needed a high quality audio, you would just use an audio cable. The idea is this makes your audio signal sound an awful lot like a very far away radio station. Yeah, so the Nomad, see if I can maybe bring some audio up on it here. The Nomad is a voltage controlled shortwave radio receiver. So you get some kind of radio noises out of it. But the cool thing with the Nomad is, besides just being a radio receiver, is the tuning is voltage controlled. So I've got this, let me see what I got here. I've got an LFO coming into the CV input, and if I bring up the CV, it animates the tuning. And you can really abuse that. You can go way up into the audio range and just get crazy sounds out of it. So with the companion transmitter module, now you have a lot of other possibilities too, because you can kind of feed it your own audio program. You can even do like a feedback loop where you take the audio out of the RF Nomad, feed it back into the input of the transmitter, and create a radio frequency feedback loop, which you can even interact with just kind of by moving your hand around and interrupting the radio frequency field. It's kind of fun. So that's one new module. So the µCVC, so far I've been building these by hand. So kind of what's new is that these will soon be made in a contract manufacturer, so more of a production environment, because we're anticipating the sales of the Continuum Mini, which is coming out soon, which is Haken Audio's reduced size, reduced cost version of the Continuum. It's a perfect match for a Eurorack system because it's a 2-octave Continuum, but it still interfaces with the µCVC, and you can do all the things with that you can do with the full-size one in terms of controlling a Eurorack. What I've got hooked up right now is I've got the X, Y, and Z axes on the Continuum controlling some CV controllable parameters of this patch. So for example, the X direction I've got mapped to pitch. I've got the Y axis mapped to filter cutoff. And the Z axis, you might be able to see this here. As I push into the surface, you can see this VCA. I'm using the Z-axis to control volume. This is a patch that's kind of real similar to like an acid-base patch. If you were just to play it with a sequencer, it would sound very, acidy. Let's see here, something like that's a very familiar sound, but using that exact same patch, but using your own expressiveness and musicality added into that patch, you completely transform what that sounds like. So you can see that you bring in your own musical expression into the modular. So, as opposed to using a sequencer or a keyboard or something that's kind of a static environment, you bring in yourself. And that's something that audiences really respond to, is that you can really see that you are part of this performance. You're not just, necessarily automating some things. You're really bringing yourself into it, which is what I really enjoy about the µCVC module. Should I go into the...
Where can people find out more about what you're doing?
Right, so I'm Evaton Technologies. There's a website, evatontechnologies.com. Information on all of my modules is there. The µCVC is currently available. At the moment, I am still hand building them. I have a few in stock. Current price on those is $200 a piece. And you can get 2 of them for $380, which gives you a duophonic pair. The other new module for this year is my Link module, which is a case-to-case bridge. The purpose is you put one of these in one Eurorack case, one in another case, and instead of, when you go to cross-patch, instead of running long cables between the 2 cases back and forth, you instead patch into the Link module in one case. You plug in this standard HDMI cable, and the other end of that plugs into your other Link module. And so the things that go in on one jack on this Link come out on the same jack on the other Link. What's sort of unique about the Link is that the top 4 jacks are stereo and the bottom 10 are mono. So if you plug in a breakout cable to the top 4, you actually get a total of 18 CV gate or audio signals that can go over a single HDMI cable, and it's only 4 HP wide. So I actually built this for my friends in Pittsburgh who perform out a lot, and most of them have 2 like 6U cases, and they'll put together a pretty complex patch, but it uses all the modules in both cases, and so they'll have cables running between both boxes. And so when they go to the gig, they kind of have to unpatch all the stuff that goes between the 2 cases because it's just too hard to carry them that way. So I did this in response to that. So now they can just run this single HDMI cable between the 2 cases, patch into the Link module on one case, patch out from the other case, and when it's time to go to the gig, they only have to remove the 1 HDMI cable, show up at the gig, put their 2 cases down with the patch already patched up, plug in that 1 cable, and boom, they're ready to go. It's also really fun if you're having a jam session with a buddy. You throw one Link module in your case, you throw another Link module in his case, hook the cable between the 2 cases, and there's a video on my website. If you look, my friend Morgan and I did this one evening. He brought his case over, and it's really fun because you can do things like, oh, hey, give me some of the output of your woggle bug over there. Okay, patch that into jack J over there. So I take J out on my side and I plug it into my VCO. He's like, okay, that's cool. Can you give me the output of your RF Nomad on something? I was like, okay, I'll patch my RF Nomad into R, okay, and he pulls out of R on his, and so it's really fun for like a 2-up jam as well. It's all passive. There's no active electronics in it, so it's basically just like a giant patch cable. So I've got a prototype of my sonar module, and what it does is uses ultrasonic sound, like a 40 kilohertz audio pulse. So it transmits out this little like chirp and listens for it to echo from something, measures how long that took, and from that it basically measures distance and translates the distance into a number of outputs. One is just the control voltage. The farther away you are, the lower the voltage. So at 12 feet away, you get 0 volts. And at 1 inch away, you get 5 volts. So you can kind of use it if you're controlling, say, pitch with it. You can kind of think of it as like a really large theremin. In fact, what's really fun is to set it up in a room like this where there's people walking around, and just as they're walking by, they don't realize, but they're interacting with your synth. In addition to having the CV output, it's going to have a clock output that is proportional to the distance. It's also going to have a built-in oscillator whose pitch is proportional to the distance, and also a noise generator. But those things there's some things I'm still working on the firmware for those. I've got another revision of the printed circuit board to go, so it's going to happen a little bit later in the year, maybe early next year, until it's available. But I do have the working prototype here, and I can kind of show you how that works. You can hear it's a little indeterminate, and that's because I am not a perfectly smooth surface. So the ultrasonic sound echoes off of my shirt in a sort of unpredictable manner, and you can hear the pitch of this oscillator drifting around. But if I use a perfectly smooth surface, and you can see it's very directional too. So a fun thing to do with this is if you're playing, say, an acoustic instrument, like I have an electric ukulele, I run that through a filter and I use the sonar to control the cutoff frequency of the filter. And as I'm playing my uke, I can kind of walk around, and as I get closer and farther away, the filter cutoff moves around. And you get that indeterminism as well, so it's a really cool effect. Again, it's something that lets you bring yourself into your modular performance.